Welcome to the podcast. I'm Ben.
I'm Mae.
And I'm Max, and we were had.
Can you believe it?
There are twists and there are turns.
Defleshed is a standard death.
Oh, that's fun.
We were had.
We were.
This time on the pod, we are talking about everyone's favorite child murder, JonBenét Ramsey.
Top five for
this
me
is
at
gonna be
least.
Yeah, top
Top
five. Don't go
five.
so fast. Lindbergh, baby.
This one's the ultimate test of our ability as podcasters is can we make a bit out of this brutal murder of a 6-year-old?
Yes. And we should say from the very beginning, we don't find the events funny. We will be making jokes, but
They will be distasteful.
They will be distasteful.
Yes. Yes.
But of course, terrible thing.
Right.
That should go as without saying.
Yes.
Our heart goes out. We do hope that eventually something gets figured out with this case. And also, don't cancel us for whatever we say here. Cancel us for Ben's blackface in elementary school.
Or the blackface that I'm wearing right now. Thank God we're not.
There's a reason we don't do video yet.
I just need to get it out of my system.
All right, so let me give. I did the research here, even though Mae, with her years of criminology, probably knows more than I do. Even though I spent a day on this, she's got a lifetime under her belt studying these cases. Yeah. But all right. So first things first, I'll give you a little overview. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey, born August 1990, unfortunately died on Christmas Day 1996, which is an extra turn of the knife, which is insane. She was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. A lengthy handwritten ransom note was found in the home. Her father, John, found the girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She sustained a broken skull from a blow to the head and had been strangled. A garrote, which is just a fancy word for a rope used to kill you, was found tied around her neck. The autopsy report stated that the official cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma, which is a hit to the head. Her death was ruled a homicide. The case generated nationwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, herself a former beauty queen, had entered JonBenét into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still unsolved and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department.
Yes.
This case is insane. It's insane. It's insane.
Wasn't the thing
No,
about
it deserves the hype. There are certain things, I don't know what the Harry Potter, whatever it is for you, that's very hyped up, that meets the expectations. I think that this would qualify as one of those.
Exceeds.
It's
But wait, so the thing around her neck was more of like a ligature thing, where it was like it had a stick at the end of it that you could pull, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, which also looked like a broken paintbrush from the mom's fucking set, by the way.
It did.
Oh.
It did.
I mean, all signs point to this mother doing it. We're going to go really into
Let's
the
get into
details.
the details.
May, let me just ask you this, though. Benjamin, Mae Planert, if I turned to you and I said, and I've been your friend for years and hopefully will be your friend for life, but if I called you and said, my daughter was kidnapped, we found her, she was murdered, and you go, dear God, where'd they find her? I go, oh, in my basement. You're not going to think to yourself, Max, you did that? You're not going to think.
Oh, yeah. I think that's more just, though, a statement of how I look at you. Of course I would.
I'd be like, wow, the day's finally come.
Yeah, that checks out. I would be surprised if this day didn't happen.
Yeah.
This is...
How does someone kidnap your child in your house and then I guess they stay in your house, or they just leave they leave a ransom note and also the child?
Yeah, and the ransom note was bizarre as fuck. It used super old school criminal language that was like, it sounded like it was out of like a 1920s like
it was
really bad
well
movie.
it also it was like, we're a group of foreigners that want your money. It was 3 pages long.
Yeah, it was very long, right? Yeah.
It was long. It was the frantic rantings of somebody that did not know. They didn't go into that ransom note knowing what they wanted to get out of it. Let me tell you something. That was ad lib. That was an ad lib ransom note.
and they were asking for 118,000.
Yeah. Right, which is a very random number, and I don't want to bury the lead, but I believe that there is that number is significant, right? Is that part of it? because
there's only so many documentaries you can watch about this before you get sad.
all I was saying, I think that the father got some sort of like check for that amount or a bonus. I can't remember the exact detail, but that random number I think points a little to the parents
or a work colleague.
His theory was that somebody he canned some guy 6 months earlier, and that guy I guess threatened him. So that was his main person for like, this guy, he's got it out for us.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go through. I have a bunch of different sections here, and you can tell me which way you want me to take it in. I have two different significant detectives, and they have very different theories for what happened. And then we have what CBS thought happened, and then based on a bunch of depositions that I watched, I'll give my theory on what happened, and I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you want to hear first?
Let's do it in the order that you just said.
Wait, I also kind of want to go through like the events of the night. Like I know they found, for instance, like undigested pineapple in her stomach. So like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I read a theory on the pineapple.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I read a pineapple theory as well. Let me tell you that. All right, so what happened is like the dad was a pilot, so I guess he went back to the plane or something, right?
Wait, what? No,
was he not a pilot?
I
Well,
don't
he was
so.
He was out of town for the evening.
Pilot? Wait, what?
I thought he was a businessman.
But he was out of the house.
Okay.
He was out of the house for the evening. And whilst out, the mother Patsy was home with the two kids, Burke and Patsy. Dinner, put them to bed, is what she said that happened. And then
quick question: Burke is the brother, right?
Yes.
Burke is the brother.
Older or younger?
Older.
9 years old at the time. He was older.
Got it. Okay, continue.
So it puts him to bed, whatever. Then, because I'm trying to say this in a way that are just like the objective facts, because the detective's words keep going like, and then he's like, "This is what I think happened," and I'm like, "Ooh, is it?"
Yeah.
But that was the last thing I read. But after that, it was Christmas Eve, so they woke up early that morning. John was in the shower. He overheard his wife scream, went out to get her. She had found the ransom note. They immediately called the police, even though the ransom note said don't call the police. We'll get into that later as well. The police show up. One detective shows up. That guy, I guess, doesn't check the basement. It was a door that just, I guess he was like, it behooved him to not check the basement. Didn't look suspicious.
Oh my God.
I guess he chatted with them. Also, I mean, I'm going to get into this more later. Patsy was still in her clothes and makeup from the night before. I don't know why she went. I guess she went to bed.
What time was this?
It was just like, it was Christmas morning.
Oh,
they posited that they were waking up for Christmas morning. But
Oh.
I don't, unless your mother's a terrible alcoholic, nobody's waking up Christmas morning in the same exact Christmas Eve outfit that they were in the night before. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then the cops, and then they call some friends. They get their friends involved. They come over. The detectives are like, go check the house. And then John's like, oh, gee, I guess I'll check the basement. And then she's down there in the basement. She's down there in the they find her in the basement wrapped very neatly in a white blanket and her favorite nightgown, which looked like it was put on after the fact of the killing. She had duct tape on her mouth. Her hands were tied, and she had ligature, obvious blunt force trauma and ligature marks around the neck. She was clearly deceased. And then right off the bat, I guess the cops were like, these parents might have done it. All their handwriting was taken in because their first instinct was like, this mom wrote the note. And she gave in like 5 different handwriting accounts. And again, the decisions were split. Some people were like, there's no chance. And then like several experts were like, there is no doubt in my mind this woman wrote this note. Yes, you're right. They found pineapple undigested in her stomach still, which I guess is also a thing for theory. But Mae, you have anything to add on here?
No, I think it's really weird that, I mean, if she were to write the note, why wouldn't she do it? I guess you could tell what time it'd be done, but I was going to say like on a computer, because usually people can match your handwriting in some way. They like, I don't know what they know, but they know. And also
we get the swoops and the shapes and stuff.
And it's such a stupid thing to be like, okay, I'm going to write this 2-page ransom note And it's like, who?
3. It was like
3
2.5.
page. 2.5. But like, if you just went in and murdered some little girl, you're not going to like pull up a seat and write a 2-page.
Yeah, let me tell you that. That's the other thing is that there are 2 theories that exist. There was an intruder who did this, or someone who was already in the house, meaning it was a family member, which would mean that an intruder broke into the house and wrote a handwritten 2.5-page ransom note whilst in this family's home on Christmas Eve.
Why couldn't they have written the note before?
Wasn't it written with a pen there or something?
It was written. The pen was in the fucking bucket in the kitchen.
Oh, okay. What a great job, handwriting expert.
Yeah.
That's got to be.
That's
a lot
cool.
of them.
And let me tell you something. The documentary I watched, it had like 4 different handwriting experts that give testimony.
And they've all been on forensic files several times.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Because it's like the FBI used them. It's also a criminology thing. But I think it's a psychology thing as well. You can see like the way that serial killers write and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. All right. So now we know the basic kind of a little more detail of this stuff. Which
just quick thing. Minor thing, but I looked it up. Dad, businessman, worth $6.4 million by 1996. So
damn.
They were a wealthy family, which would also this lays claim to the fact that maybe it's a big house. Maybe you don't hear people rustling around. I mean, even if it's the mom that did this, nobody woke up. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or even if it was the dad, devil's advocate, but the guy was a nice guy, it seemed like.
Just a good pilot.
He was a good pilot.
You don't know anything about him. You're like, wasn't him.
Great.
The guy was a pilot. He's he's the best pilot I've ever flown with. Enter stage left, Detective Lou Smith. He came out of retirement specifically to help investigate and ultimately resigned because of this case. He came out and left because of this case. He really went hard for the intruder theory. Like, I didn't find anything that said this, but it's like, did he know the family? Because it was like too much where he came out of retirement and he was like, you guys, it's gotta be an intruder. Most of the other police were like, it might not have been an intruder. Like,
also, wasn't there like, they found no evidence of an intrusion outside where the like window was in the basement, or was there?
The thing was there was a broken window in the basement, but the dad had said, I might have done that a couple weeks ago. He originally said all the doors are locked. I don't know anybody gotten in, but then they found like there were a couple of windows open and maybe even one door because of Christmas decorations and stuff. Listen, it's a big house. You miss a lock every once in a while, so it is. Yeah. It's plausible.
Okay.
But this guy, he goes. He said him and also a former FBI agent that the Ramsey family, they hired their own private detectives as well, including this former FBI agent. They said that it was likely an intruder and in fact very likely a local pervert. Apparently a bunch of registered sex offenders lived in the area, and they believed, and this is reasonable, that her pageant activity they said it likely made her a target of pedophiles in the area. That does make sense. And here's something that I read on Wikipedia, which is insane, is that there had been over 100 burglaries of their house before the murder.
100?
There had been, I don't know if it was a Wikipedia mistake or if some jack off wrote that in there, but Wikipedia said, and I triple took, it said there had been over 100 burglaries of their house before the murder.
Well, that
before the murder.
Ridiculous. Yeah, and it's like
at
this
that point,
nice, cute town in Colorado. Why would there be so many moves?
Can I ask you, in 1996, did they not have alarms? Are there not alarms?
Definitely they did.
100 burglaries. So that's insane. That makes me feel like it was an intruder.
But yeah, it probably. It could have definitely been an intruder. I'm saying that the intruder possibility. I did not rule it out completely. I'm not a detective, but it's like this guy Lou Smith and a couple FBI, and it's like you do want to get caught up in the media shit because the media very much wanted to. It made it sensationalized. It was exactly what happened with the Casey Anthony and the Foxy Noxy, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It gets readers, you know what I mean. And then it's the court of public opinion in the media and all that kind of stuff, which is why they fought so. They've also sued so many times for defamation between media outlets, individual people, all sorts of things. Sure. But also maybe they hired a detective to throw people off the scent. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and I think it is important.
100 burglaries of the house is wild.
That's just false. Over what length of time? How many fucking burglaries? That's insane.
I don't know. It was actually. You know what? I want to look it up again. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I do think it's important to note with a case like this that if we're wrong about the parents being in on it, which I'm not saying that we said that, but plenty of people have said that, that's awful.
Yeah.
I mean,
if there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramsey's neighborhood in the months before John.
Come on.
That's on me. That's on me.
God.
That makes more sense. All right, so let me just read you exactly. It was determined that
Change a thing.
there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramsey's neighborhood in the months before JonBenet's murder, which is insane. And there were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramsey's home.
What are they having, like a tax breaks for fucking sex offenders in Colorado? Like, why are they all living there?
For a man worth $6.8 million to live in a burglary and pedophile rich neyborhood doesn't make a lot of sense.
Literally.
I don't know why this happened.
Especially when your daughter looks like JonBenét, my own. I mean, like, like she's a beautiful young lady, and she's like in pageants and stuff, and it's like, let's just have her playing out on the front lawn. Yeah, she's a public figure, and all these diddlers are around.
There's a lot of diddlers. So, like, honestly, it's possible. It's rich people. It's a large house. She is a public figure, but here's the thing, is that there were like undisturbed cobwebs right by the unlocked windows.
Yes,
so it was tough there was not clear, even in the areas of the house where it's like, okay, someone could have gotten in. That was determined. But it's like, did they? Because it's like right next to the unlocked thing and stuff. It's just like, it's all it's one of those things where at every turn, it's like, there is probable cause, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
Not to double down on. Listen, I used to watch SVU back in the day. Not to show my hand here, but all right. Let's go on to Detective Steve Thomas. Let me tell you something. I like the cut of this guy's jib. I enjoyed him.
Yeah, but I don't know what makes you like. Why do you like the father? Why do you like anyone?
First of all, Ben, I read auras. I go by vibes.
It's fair.
It's big on energies. It's big on energies with me. You know that. One sentence is, I can tell if you're a killer. That's how I knew about Mike Bramante. Detective Steve Thomas laid out a very reasonable explanation that really, he basically explained it in like an Adrian Monk, like psych style detection. Like he was like, Patsy was still in her clothes and makeup from the night before. Why did that happen? Well, it's probably because, he also was like, there were pages missing from a notepad in the kitchen, and it looked like they tried multiple different times to write out a note, which is like, if you're writing one ransom note and you know what you want, wouldn't you get it right the first time? Anyway, the rope around JonBenet's wrist was just for show and like easily escapable. So he was like, they could have done this afterwards, like as if like it was like. He also said that the duct tape, there was like mucus and blood under the duct tape, and there wasn't signs of someone trying to get it off. Like there wasn't like tongue marks or anything, or it was like a struggle at all of the duct tape.
All right.
So basically, she's dead, and they
he said that she probably wanted a late night snack, had a little pineapple. And then she probably had a bathroom accident, and the mom, because she did have like there was some
that.
like
I read about that too.
So she probably had like a bathroom accident, you know what I mean, which would have made
she was a bedwetter, right? Wasn't that part of it?
She was she was a bedwetter, and also like there was like vaginal trauma, which I don't like talking about with a 6-year-old, but a doctor.
Oh yeah, but with an adult, it's it's a load of laughs.
Thank you. There was a vaginal trauma, but like a doctor was like, that could have been from like excessive wiping from a parent being mad at you for having an attack, which is like reasonable, I guess. And he was like, she probably got mad at her after she had an accident and like hit her head against the tub or something else in the room. Then she decided to cover it up. And, the worst part is that she didn't realize that JonBenét wasn't actually dead from the head wound. I mean, she would have eventually died from that wound, but he was like, she probably took her down to the basement and ended up strangling her because he realized that she was still a little bit alive, that there was a little bit of breathing happening, finished the job, tried to make it look like it. And then the scream was like, she just went upstairs and screamed, and her husband was like, what's going on? And she like was like, oh, I just found this note. Where's our daughter?
Oh man.
So
the way he laid it out was more eloquent, but it makes sense.
It sounds plausible. I mean,
I didn't realize that there was multiple versions of the note. That's something I didn't realize.
Well, that was his theory, but I don't know if maybe he got that. You know, when you can kind of charcoal in and see kind of prints. I don't know if he saw that if that was a thing on the notepad.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything about that, but he seemed pretty positive that there were multiple versions, like where she like flipped to the middle of the notepad, flipped to either that or he was really filling in the blanks here. But he.
Okay, so in this situation, just to recap, it's all the mom, right? Dad has nothing to do with it.
It's all the mom. It's all the. You'll notice that actually. The only thing that he had to say about the father was that the father realized it was the mom's fault because he was like John when they first came to the house was like distraught, didn't know what was happening, and then he said like his tone completely changed about halfway through, and then he's like I posit that the dad realized that the mom did it, and he was like he had already lost a child from a previous marriage. By the way.
Oh, no.
And then
how did that happen?
He had to a car crash. It wasn't a murder.
Okay.
And, well, that we know of. And then the detective Thomas was like, this guy was like, do I want to lose my wife too?
I'm sorry, backtrack a second. Both of you, when you said the car crash thing, made it sound like that it wasn't a big deal. You're like, no. It was a car crash, not a murder.
Well, it's not
Let's move on.
I mean, if another kid of his got murdered, I'd be like, obviously this guy's murdering.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I took it as more of a you see where
you can't feel too bad for him. He just died in a car crash.
Car crashes happen.
And so the guy's theory was that that John Ramsey was basically from then on he made a conscious decision to kind of be like, I'm gonna try to like go along with it, and that's when he was like,
oh man,
he realized that they were probably gonna be evidence and they were probably gonna find the child. So that's when he was like, I guess we'll search the house per this detective's recommendation. He was like, oh my god, we found her, and that's all Detective Thomas's a theory of it. But if you watch the depositions, which I did, it kind of, the guy is really defending her. He's either a great husband or a great husband who also knows his wife murdered.
Well, that's interesting. You said great husband because, okay, so hypothetical situation, not saying that this scenario is what happened, at all. But let's say this situation happens, your spouse does this. What is the right thing to do?
There is no right thing. I don't think there's a right thing.
What,
that's a literal...
Kidding? No, the right thing to do is to turn them in.
To turn in your spouse? Max,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. It depends when you find out. Like, does your wife explain to you, like, it really was an accident? You see it in her eyes, and, like, it's like you don't want... now she's in too deep, and she was panicking, and you're like, you're also in too deep, and you're panicking. Like, in that moment, it's tough.
Guess.
I know Mae is factually correct. I mean, morally and factually,
if you're taking a civics class in school, Mae's answer is correct. But let's get by.
201.
Why ruin two people's lives, I guess?
Well, that's literally it. Do I want to lose my daughter and my wife in the same exact day?
Oh God. But I mean, if I feel like if she came clean originally, I'm not saying that she did it or whatever, but again, we don't have to keep doing these disclaimers. But like,
okay, fine.
Yeah.
So she did it, and
but like, I feel like if she pled guilty and she showed remorse and she explained the events and explained how it was an accident, the court would have mercy on her too. She probably would have served 10 years
that's a really
and gotten
good point.
out.
Yeah.
That's what Detective Thomas said. Like, he was like, she probably didn't realize that at the time, like, if it was an accident, like, the courts wouldn't have done anything to her. At that point, as soon as she made a decision to tamper with everything, you're done. But like, in the moment, you probably would have gotten at most like a little bit of a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, but the shock of, I mean, I think all of us know this feeling on a much more minor level
of murdering your child.
Well, we all I was going to say that I think that we've all felt the feeling of doing something wrong that we shouldn't have done and immediately trying to think of excuses or lies to get out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I think
have you ever
that
stepped on a dog's paw by accident? Like, that really, it ruins
Never
you.
by accident. No, here's not to go on too much of a tangent. I was in Seattle doing a few shows in Seattle. I rented a car, and it was one day where I was like, I had no shows. I was kind of just a free day, and I went and I drove to a mall to see a movie. I'm parking in the parking lot, and I accidentally hit on the accelerator instead of the brake. And I kind of like went into, I decimated the car. I was fine. But it like went into this like little alcove where I couldn't get the car out. And when the head of the mall parking lot or whatever came up to me, I immediately was like, oh yeah, a guy sideswiped me. I freaked out and I hit the accelerator. And then the guy turns to me and says, oh, don't worry, sir. We have cameras all over this mall. We will find the person who did it. Anyway, that's my... I'm not saying I went through the same experience as JonBenét Ramsey's father, but...
Close.
Similar.
No, I mean, it's not... I'm just saying that if the two of us, had dinner, we'd have something to talk about. I don't know.
Hold on one sec. Let me get my computer's overheating. There's too much heat to this story. I have to put something underneath it. It's burning my lap. All right. Now we have two detectives on the scene that have discussed it. Also, I didn't want to get too much into this, but this was all over the map in terms of the DA got involved, obviously, and everybody, all the law enforcement people were at each other's throats. There was a lot of infighting. People were like almost coming to blows, like almost getting to fist fights with each other. That's how much it was like people within, and that's how much doubt that was cast, and how much the evidence was conflicting, is that people were like literally like fighting each other over what they thought happened here. The DA was also like, it was like some people were like, well, the family especially, were like, they're trying to defame us in the media and assassinate our character. Other people were like, they're just trying to build a case. It's a whole thing. But then later, somebody from some office publicly apologized to the family and was like, we never should have accused you of anything. And then somebody else a couple years later was like, why would you do that? We probably should have definitely accused them of something. Anyway, it was like... Anyway, in 2016, CBS, heard of it? Weighed in. They aired a documentary called like the case of JonBenét Ramsey.
Casey Anthony.
They said the case of Anthony.
Are we going to do Casey Anthony at one point, or do you feel like that's not even a question?
It's not even. Well, I feel like maybe I'll do it, but it's not really a mystery. It's like, did she kill her? Yes.
My conclusion
It'll be
is
one of our shorter episodes. This one might be a little longer.
I don't think Casey Anthony killed her child, but I know Casey Anthony killed JonBenét Ramsey. She was the intruder. He said, the CBS documentary said that Burke, during like a scuffle, like they were like obviously 9-year-old, 6-year-old, like she like took a piece of his pineapple, and then the documentary posited that he hit her with a flashlight or something hard. She accidentally died, and then the mom covered it up, and then the father might have covered it up, helpful as well, after being spayed. Anyway, after this documentary aired, because this is also a very popular theory because of this documentary now, Burke, now an adult, sued the living hell out of CBS, the network, and made hundreds of millions of dollars. Settled outside of court.
I didn't see this, but wasn't he also on Dr. Phil?
Yes, he was.
I don't watch the Dr. Phil program. I stay away from that.
Yeah, he was on Dr. Phil, and he was really weird on Dr. Phil. But like, being weird does not mean you're a murderer, obviously. But like,
people can be weird.
And listen, I mean, his sister was killed in like the most publicized, crazy, like media darling way.
Of course.
And he was only 9 years old at the time. It's very traumatizing. But now he's like, or at the time of the Dr. Phil thing, he was a 29-year-old kid. And he was like super weird. He was a software engineer, so that's like their MO. Yeah. But he was like extra weird because of his trauma. But people thought that he was. They were like, yeah, he's definitely gonna be the murderer, because Dr. Phil would ask him a question and he would like giggle through it and like smile and have like a smirk on his face, which was super creepy. But like, you can't like say definitively he did it just because you don't like him. You're not like Max, who's just like, I like this guy. You would have fallen for who's like the super hot serial killer?
Bundy.
You would have fallen for Bundy. You'd be like, I trust this guy.
Nice guy. He's got the cut of his jib. God forbid a nice smile exonerates you. Here's the thing with Burke, though, is that at the time, the police immediately said he wasn't at all a suspect. I mean, they did speak to him. And I get like, okay, you can say that if the parents or the family was involved, the parents can lie. A 9-year-old's going to trip up. They're going to say something that's going to incriminate themselves. They didn't have time to coach this 9-year-old boy into lying about the murder. So it's tough to believe
Also,
Yeesh.
pineapple. I mean, that's not like a.
Who's stealing pineapple?
It's not a great snack.
Yeah, I'd be like, take my pineapple. This is gross.
Yeah, weird texture.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a snack of like one of those parents who are kind of like more health nutty and won't give the kid, Skittles or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not the
Makes
snack
your
that
tongue
smiles
feel
back.
weird. Yeah.
All right. Here's the thing.
tongue feel
Here's
bad.
the last thing.
I think Mae's just
in
allergic to
my-
pineapple.
Wait a minute. Pineapple doesn't make your tongue feel weird?
No, it gives you hives, sure.
I go into anaphylactic shock.
That's just pineapple.
You always have to
All
stick
these
yourself
people in
an EpiPen
Hawaii
when
are,
you eat it.
going wild for this thing. And
Yeah, that fully happens. So it makes my tongue feel all weird and like.
is that a thing
fat.
for you too, Max?
No, because I'm not allergic to it.
God damn it. Okay.
All right. The depositions. So here's something right off the bat that it's like, come on. Patsy didn't testify under oath about the murder until 5 years after it happened.
What?
Which is like, if your child's murdered, and first of all, their lead lawyer, Lynn Wood, was on TV talking to Katie Couric, and Katie Couric was like, how come she didn't fucking go under oath? And he was like, they didn't ask. And
What?
at that point, that was his defense of that. And here's the thing: if your kid's murdered and you think that people even think for a second that you're part of it, wouldn't you immediately be like, "Let me say it under oath, I didn't do it. Hook me up to a lie detector test. Let's get to the butt. Let's take the heat off of me so we can figure out who
Exonerate
actually
me.
did this."
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was all anyway. This documentary also, first of all, documentaries always have goals, and they always have a way that they want you to think at the end of it. This is certainly guilty of that. So they obviously played clips of the depositions that sway you in certain ways. Anyway, a big focus
Wait, I'm sorry.
of the documentary.
You said that the documentary's purpose was to slander the brother, correct?
No. I watched the only documentary that was free to view on Prime Video. I don't think it's the best documentary that's been made about this case. I don't recommend it. It was a half an hour, and they clearly want you to think that Patsy did this. That's very clerical.
Okay, but the documentary we're talking about now, what you said that they had an agenda. What was the agenda?
To make you think that Patsy did this.
To make it okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
The CBS documentary wanted you to think that Burke did it.
Got it. Okay.
Anyway, first of all, she was cool as a goddamn cucumber. I'm more weirded out by that than a little giggle through an interview, because giggling is a sign of nervousness as well as
yeah.
being a creep. But like this woman,
You
I don't
giggle
care if it's 5
constantly.
years.
Yeah. He
Huh?
does giggle.
You giggle
constantly.
constantly.
Okay, well that's because I'm a madman. She was cool as a cucumber. I mean, it was 5 years after, but if it's still
Yeah,
your
it was
murdered
5 years
child,
after.
I don't think you gotta break down at some point. Anyway, also her handwriting was a big focus of this, and it is eerily similar. And
I
the way
just
she
don't-
handled the questions they asked about it, it's insane. So they showed her a photo of Jonbenet, like a Polaroid, with Patsy's handwriting on it, because it was a family photo. And she said, "That's not mine."
What?
They were like, "Do you recognize the girl in this photo?" And like the people, it was like Pat, Jonbenet, and a few friends. And she was like, "Yeah, that's Jonbenet. I don't recognize anybody else." And they were like, "Do you recognize that handwriting?" She was like, "Nah." And then they also showed her. They also showed her family photo albums, and they were like, "You recognize these photos?" She was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You recognize that handwriting?" I go, "I don't." She goes, "I don't know. I have no idea who could have done that." And it's like, and then first of all, they asked her for like a lot of handwriting samples. They asked her for eventually 5 different samples because it was like enough to be like, Jesus Christ, she might have written this note, and right off the bat they thought she did. They showed her a list of letters from the samples, which was like an A from this, or a G from the letter, a G from Patsy's stuff. And they were like, "Do you think there's anything similar?" And first of all, she had a little bit of an attitude. She was like, "Well, they're both G's." And they were like, "What about these O's?" She was like, "Well, they both have a circle in the middle." And she
Oh my
giggled
God.
after. And they were like, "You don't see any similarities." And then she really, after that, she was like, "Well, no, there's no similarities here. One is thicker. The other one is clearly was done, is a little shaky." And she was like pointing, it was like someone pointing to like the ways that she was trying to make them look different. When
Yeah.
in reality, anybody objectively, and here's the other thing, is if you're actually innocent, you'd be like, "That's my handwriting. And like, honestly, it does fucking look similar, but I didn't write this note." But to be look you in the eyes and be like, "I don't know who wrote that. And,
Yeah,
and these
it's
are
weird.
nothing. And also, these are nothing alike." Pick a lane. Because they are objectively alike.
I mean, she was obviously getting that advice from her lawyers, but like, get better lawyers. Those lawyers are giving you bad advice. So you're acting really sus.
Oh, here's the other thing. Is in the deposition, I'm going to go, John was also, they showed video of the father as well. But this is the worst part, in my opinion, you can, of the way that she handled this, is like, the police were like, in the ransom note, it said, don't call the police. If you call the police, your daughter will be beheaded. It was one of the sentences. And she was like, and they were like, do you remember that being said that? And she was like, yeah, I think so. I remember that. And then she was like, they were like, but it did say it. She was like, yes, I know that they said it. And then they were like, so why did you call immediately after? And she was like, I guess I wasn't thinking of that. And then they said it again. And she was like, I didn't read the note all the way through before calling the police. And that's where I paused and I was like, your daughter's missing. Someone leaves a ransom note. You don't read it in full.
Well, it was very
You're not going to read that in full.
Yeah, but
It's not that long. It's not a novel.
Were kind of big.
the font.
The font was pretty big.
It's 2.5 notepad pages.
I don't
know.
know.
What I mean? If that's typed out double spaced on a computer, that's one page. That's a one-page essay.
So
Let me tell you that.
So I'm just so hesitant to like judge in any way what the quote unquote normal reaction would be, because when someone is in that degree of shock, I don't know. I don't
know how you would act
I don't know how I would act. And like when you're saying with the interview that she was like too cool and that means that she wasn't nervous, but if she was crying, like then we would all be like, she's faking it. Like I feel like there's no right way of doing it. And then similarly, when you're talking about the brother on Dr. Phil, like, maybe the guy is just an awkward kid.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah. Well,
that's a wonderful point. And you're clearly correct, Ben, in that like the media clearly wants you to think a certain way about this. All different shows and programs and magazines, it's all based off of clicks and readers and viewers and all that kind of stuff. And there really is no correct way. You don't know any idea of the right. There's no right way to handle your 6-year-old being murdered, even if you did it. There's no correct way to do it either way.
Wait, so Max, are you going to talk about also the 911 call that she made was weird in itself, because she kept calling and then she would hang up, and if you're on a 911 call, they ask you to like hang on the phone until help is there. And she hung up a few times, which is weird. And then correct me if I'm wrong, I need to like look into, I should have looked this up, but basically sorry everybody, but they could hear her in the background of one of the, like there was something said in the background of one of the 911 calls that people have a lot to say about.
I didn't come across a lot of that. I didn't come across that. Again, I don't think I watched the best documentary, but I
half an hour. That's not enough time.
That.
It's not enough
That's
time
not
to
enough
cover
time.
this.
It should have been 3 hours. I really would have watched more because I'm watching this. I was also making a delightful dinner, but I'm watching this and I'm like, this woman did it, and that's the power of a documentary. Is that's what they want, the conclusion that you want. Inconvenient truth. No one's walking away from that being like, the polar bears are fine. The father, his honestly, like I said, the guy seems like a real peach. I'd hang out with him. What'd you say?
I couldn't get through the entirety of Inconvenient Truth. I couldn't believe they made a sequel. The first one was successful. It's the most boring movie I've ever seen in my life. It's a science movie.
The father, in his depositions, he was vehemently defending his wife, but not in like a way that was like irate. He just like seemed like a nice guy. He was like, I don't believe she covered it up. And that was that. He also claimed to not recognize the handwriting at all. He was like, my wife's handwriting is very neat. Their handwriting is very messy. And also they spelled some words wrong. And the interviewer is like, couldn't you also say that someone would do that intentionally? And he was like, I guess you could. And it's tough. And it's like, some of them are leading questions, and it's like, it is really tough. And it's tough to look at them. It's also, there's no way, this is one of those things where it's, unless you really are one of the people fortunate enough to have never learned anything. I went to this being like, not knowing a lot, but still in the back of my mind, it's like the parents had something to do with it, because you've heard things before.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Remember, my mom always said that. She's like, she's so weird. She's got something to do with it. I swear to God. Like I remember my mom saying that.
I think my parents used to say shit like that too. But like, it was never like, do you believe like somebody broke into this family's house? That was never even considered by people, because first of all, I also think it's a lot harder for the media and also the general public it's a lot scarier to believe that the story is a pedophile broke into these people's house, got their daughter, and killed her and left her in the basement. That's the way more terrifying version of the story.
It's more terrifying.
I would also. It's much neater. You can tie that with a bow, and you could put it away and be like, this poor family, it's self-enclosed in this family. It's the family's problem.
Yeah.
I would also add, and we kind of hinted at this at the beginning with the beauty pageant thing, I think that we have a tendency to hate beauty pageant parents.
Yeah.
That we think that they're bad people.
Right.
And that whatever they're doing to their kid, which might be right. I mean, it might be
It's
a terrible
weird.
thing that they're doing to their kids,
Strange.
or at least very weird,
It's
right?
certainly weird.
Yeah.
But obviously, again, I'm not saying she did it or didn't do it, but I think that could be part of the reason why the story of her doing it, is a appealing story to a lot of people, whether it be conscious or subconscious.
Well, there's something that's it's somehow at both it's both easier to swallow but also more sensational. So it's kind of like the perfect storm in terms of but also handwriting experts did say that the Ransom Note was almost definitely written by a woman or a female human being.
That's crazy that you would know that. Like that you could figure that out.
You can tell, I guess, with the swoops and shit. I don't know.
little hearts over the eyes. Come on.
You guys aren't allowed to make swoops. I don't get it.
I've never swooped in my life. People would make fun of me.
I'm sure some guy out there is swooping.
What counts as a swoop? I mean, a G, capital G, has a swoop by.
I don't know. It's like there's a little rounder. I don't know. It's a whole thing. There's a whole thing to it. But
the size of our hands, I don't get it.
Yeah,
it's one of those things.
There's
you also
estrogen
really
on that paper. I'm telling.
You also really understand how hard it is to be objective.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, for people investigating this, you also have to be subjective. You have to look at what's in front of you. So you have to be objective, but also like look a little deeper, consider all the options, but also like, and that's what Detective Steve Thomas was after this documentary played his entire thing, by the way, which beautiful orator, wonderful speaker. He at the end of it, he goes, listen, I'm a firm believer, and sometimes it is the easiest to believe story. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, you know what I mean? If it looks like this woman wrote the note, they found the body in the family's house, and there was no real sign of an intrusion. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Well, then the other thing that we have to talk about for sure is if, someone breaking in is some abstract thing and we don't know who broke in, well, that's not as strong of a case as if we actually had some suspects. And yes. I know based on some of the stuff I've read points out some other people in the neighborhood that could have possibly done it, but there was that Santa theory.
Yeah, do you see the Santa theory?
There was a Santa theory. There was also a guy who falsely admitted to doing it. Like a fake confession. People are fucking freaks. Like, imagine wanting to be thought that you did this. People are insane. And here's the thing. The fact of the matter is they did live in a robbery and pedophile rich environment. So
yeah, I don't know why you would raise a family.
It's not impossible.
The Santa one was fascinating though, so I'll tell the listeners a little bit about
Please
that.
do.
So there was a guy who would dress up like Santa and he would go around with like the neighborhood kids or whatever. It's like a neighborhood guy who liked to do that. It's like some old fucking guy. And he took a special interest in Jonbenet, which is super weird to me because Jonbenet is a smoke show little girl. I mean, let's be honest. She's let's walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. She's a smoke. So
she's a baddie.
Yeah, she's a baddie. So anyway, he took
What's
a special.
A baddie?
I
don't know
girl.
that term.
It's like some hot girl term.
Oh, okay.
I think, right? I don't know. Whatever. But he took a special interest in her, which is eyebrow raising. And then he came over to her house specifically for like a special Christmas gift or whatever. And then she gave him like a vial of glitter as just like a cute little girl thing to do. And then he took that vial of glitter to his heart surgery as like good luck. It's like Jonbenet gave me this. That's fucking weird as shit. That's
was
strange.
he the one that committed suicide shortly after the murder too, or because someone did?
Not
one
that
of the
I know
suspects. One of the suspects committed suicide shortly after.
I don't think it was the Santa one, or at least in the thing that I read, it didn't mention that, which I feel like they would have.
The thing that I read basically said that eventually he got exonerated, and it was all chucked up to like character assassination of some old guy who's just like by all accounts a really sweet old guy. I was like, I don't know, it's kind of strange. Like, it's weird to take an interest in a kid that's not your own. Get out of here.
It's strange, and I'm having a stroke, but also it's tough to think about it because like you want to be like, oh, the goodness in human beings. It is nice that someone would do this, but also at the same time, every part of you is like, that's fucking weird, bro.
Yeah, it's weird as shit. Anybody who has like a charity for little kids, I'm like, what's your end game here?
Yeah, what do you want?
What do you want? What do you want with my son and his genitals? You know, it's something.
Like Sean Penn going to Africa every 20 minutes back in the day. Like that guy, you're clearly a terrible person. You're making up for something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Making up for his performance in I Am Sam. That's what he's doing.
I guess like it's just like there is no conclusion here. I think that's the most mind-numbing. I mean, the mother, God rest her soul, has passed. She died of ovarian cancer, I believe.
She did. Yeah. Has the dad died?
I think the dad's still alive.
Oh yeah.
The dad might, which is like, what a horrible life for this Burke. And there's no how could the brother at all be even a semblance of a normal person? It would be weird if he was normal.
Yeah, it would be weird.
Quote unquote normal by societal standards. I mean, there's no normal software engineers.
Yeah.
But it's a tragic story, and I think it's the most upsetting thing is like that they really never came close, and I think it's also why people really clung and cling to, both because it is really reasonable that the mother or at least the parents had something to do with it, but also because it would finally give some fucking rest to the story.
Oh yeah,
you
want an answer.
People want an answer. I don't have one. I don't have an answer.
You would think that they would have gotten closer with DNA evidence.
Yeah, it seemed like the DNA evidence only kind of
exonerated people.
Yeah, only made them further.
And a huge problem with it is when the father found the body, which is also part of were they trying to cover it up? Or I mean, obviously, this is also a reasonable reaction. Is like when he found the body, he untied her and carried her upstairs. And it's like, well, that just throws that the entire scene is now contaminated,
compromised.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I guess we got to go around the horn here, Max. After your research, what makes the most sense to you?
I mean, in my heart of hearts, it's unfortunate that you're rooting for pedophile in a case, but I really would say that the most likely is what that Detective Thomas said, that the woman, she didn't purposely kill her child. It was just a very bad accident, and she ended up trying to cover it up, and the father probably at some point realized it happened, but stood by his wife.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. But also, I'm not ruling out that Burke had something to do with it. And then because, like, as a mom, like, I don't know, you lose your daughter, but then you want to protect your son. I could see that. Yeah, I don't know. That I could see. And that would be really fucked. But
and it's also, let me tell you something. As parents and as human beings, I think it would be a lot easier to lie for the parents to be like, I didn't kill my daughter. And the mother to be like, I didn't kill my daughter. Because you're not lying.
Yeah.
You know, and you really are trying to. And there is something righteous about trying to protect your son and all of that.
Yeah. Wait,
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My gut is saying now that you mentioned that it was a dangerous area and all that stuff, my gut is saying that it really was an intruder, but I feel like, just like you said, Max, I feel like that's maybe wishful thinking. Just because the other story, whether it involves the brother or the mother, it just so fucked.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's just, I mean, I keep coming back to what was the end game with the ransom? Who kidnapped somebody in their own house? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because it's not like they thought that they were going to pay them for her because they didn't have her.
Yeah.
Well, and also the ransom note said they were going to call. No one ever called, obviously. I mean, they had, if it is an intruder, they killed the daughter. Mm-hmm. But it's a horrible story.
Yeah. It really
and listen,
is.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you guys this? We were had.
We definitely were had.
Yes, we are the victims here.
I think the moral of this story is do not put your small young children in pageants, please.
And don't
live in Boulder. I mean, this is a terrible advertisement for Boulder, Colorado. I've never been to the state, and I would like to. I could see the Rockies on my screensaver. I don't give a
I
shit.
knew you were gonna say
It's
that.
Like
growing
screensaver
with
jokes.
thieves and perverts.
Yeah, it sounds awful. But we've all been had. Society by this one.
Remember to subscribe.
Rate, subscribe, like, tell your friends, share around.
We'll know who you are by your handwriting, even if you
type it.
we'll know if you're a woman.
Yeah.